patterns that can be achieved using Photoshop. We're just going to go through some simple techniques for development of a black and white stripe using the selection tools. First of all, we're going to create a new file. Under our File menu, create a new file, or Control N or our Command N on the Mac. And we're going to use a file that is 8 inches wide and 8 inches tall, just for the purpose of this demonstration. It can be whatever size you want it to be. You can make a small little stripe just to create a little pattern and then fill it into a larger sheet, or you can create a larger pattern depending upon the repeat size that you want, or whatever your desired is. But right now we're just going to create an 8 by 8. And our resolution for textile design is always at 300 pixels per inch, or dots per inch. Our color mode is RGB color, and I'm going to use a background of white. You may want to use a transparent, but for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to use a background of white, mainly because we're going to be creating black and white stripes, so my white will already be on the ground. And I'm going to create the stripes in black. So very, very simple. So I'm just going to say OK to that, and I have my artboard here. You can see that I have my rulers visible here. If you don't see your rulers, go under your View menu and make sure that your ruler is selected here. All right, go under Rulers and click on that. If it's not visible to you, just click on it and they do come up. So you can see that I have a ruler across the top, which is representing the horizontal on my page, and along the side, which is representing the vertical measurements on my page. Those will also be used to size our stripes, either horizontally or vertically. So we can do a vertical stripe, which is very common for printing in a vertical stripe. You can also use a vertical stripe to create woven design. On a horizontal stripe, you can also use it for printing purposes, but more often it's also used in knitting. So you can actually create knitted stripe patterns for knit tops or cut and sewn knitted fabrics. In any case, we want to just create a stripe design. We're going to be creating it for a print at this point. So we are going to now click on our grid. We can also view our grid if we would like to. Under our View menu, we can go to Show Grid. And this is sometimes helpful. You can see that it's in quarter-inch increments, so if you wanted to make a perfect quarter-inch stripe, it's a helpful guide for you to use. It's like a graph paper. You can actually change the preferences of this grid, or the size of the grid, under your Photoshop menu on the Mac. Under Preferences here, you can actually change the guides and grids right here. So you can see that every grid line is every 1 inch, and there's subdivisions every 4. So that means that there's 4 to every inch, or a quarter of an inch per grid. If I wanted to change that to, say, 1/8 of an inch, I would change my subdivisions to 8. And then just say OK. So now you see I have a smaller size graph paper, if you will, and I can use that to make 1/8 inch stripes very easily. Just to let you know, under the Edit menu is where you find the preferences on the PC. It's all the way down at the bottom. I'm using the Mac, so it's not visible there, but under the Edit menu, go all the way down to the bottom. You'll see Edit Preferences, and then the menu will come up. It'll look the same as I just showed you on the Macintosh. Okay, getting back to creating our stripes, we're going to use our rectangular marquee tool here, and we're just going to click and drag and create a stripe. Now I'm going to create a stripe that is 2 inches wide, and I'm going to drag it all the way down to the bottom here and create my 2-inch stripe. Now you can see that when I select this, it's automatically snapping to the grid lines, because I have under my View menu also, I have my snap selected here. So if you can see that I have snap to grid, it's actually snapping right to the grid lines. So I don't have to worry that it's not going to be perfectly 2 inches. I know it's going to be because it's snapping to that perfect line. All right. So now I have that area selected, and I'm going to go to Edit and Fill, and I'm going to fill that in with black. All right. So I want to fill that in with my foreground color, or I could choose black here from the drop-down menu. In this case, my black is my foreground color, and I'm just going to say OK. All right, so you can see that I have now a 2-inch black stripe. Now if I wanted to create some multi-stripes, like say I wanted to make some 1/4-inch stripes, I'm going to make a few 1/4-inch stripes. Again, Edit, Fill, my foreground color, OK. I can also use the paint bucket tool. The paint bucket tool is located underneath the gradient tool on your toolbox, and go to the paint bucket tool, and you can also fill it in that way. All right, so a couple different ways that you can achieve those fills. The main purpose is here is we want to create a design arrangement of different kinds of stripes. Maybe I want to make a little 1/8-inch stripe here. Again, I can use my paint bucket tool, or I can use the Edit Fill function. Edit Fill with my foreground color, and I get another black stripe. Now say I don't want to keep going Edit Fill, I can actually use my Alt key, and I can just use my Alt key in conjunction with my Move tool, and I can duplicate those stripes. So I can move that wherever I want. Let's say I want to leave another 1/4-inch in between, and maybe another 1/4-inch in between that. So I'm creating a stripe arrangement or a stripe design here. Now if I wanted to repeat a section of this, I can actually select a whole area here. Say I want to repeat these 2 stripes, Edit Copy, Edit Paste I can do also, or I could use my duplicate function, and then I can just use my Move tool and move that to be wherever I want. Now maybe I want to mirror this. I could actually mirror a stripe as well, going under my Edit menu, and I can transform it and flip it horizontally so it can actually be mirrored. Right? I can use my arrow keys on my keyboard to move these things however I want. So if I wanted to, move them in and kind of create some different kinds of design, different looks here, I could certainly do that. So it's all up to you how you want to arrange your stripes, right? Now you can see that when I copied and paste, I have another layer here. So what I want to make sure is that I flatten my layers before I go too far. So I'm going to go under my drop-down menu, go to where it says Flatten Image, and flatten it all. Okay. All right, so I have a simple stripe here. If I wanted to, again, duplicate this whole thing for a repeat, I can, if this is what the repeat that I want, I can use that, click, drag around the whole thing here, and then just use my duplicate key, or my Alt key rather, in conjunction with my Move tool, and drag the whole thing over to find where I want that to be repeated. Alright, so I have a stripe design. Now, if I want to see what this looks like, I'm going to not view my grids anymore. I'm going to go under my View menu and hide my grid. So I'm going to go under the View, Show, hide the grid, and I can see what my beautiful black and white stripe looks like. Now, at this point, what I want to do is I want to crop this so that I don't want to crop that. I want to crop the whole thing. so that if I had any space at the top or at the bottom that I didn't bring the selection all the way down, I'm not going to have to worry about it being having a line there. So I'm just going to crop that just ever so slightly and then hit my return key. And I know that I have a clean stripe here. Let me just save my file, save as, or save, and I'm saving that as my stripe design. And I'm going to save this as a PDF. Okay, so I have that as a stripe design. So there's one of my designs. I mean, it's a very simple stripe, but it's black and white. It's very striking as a color combination, so it's really very impactful. Now, say if I wanted to use this stripe and I wanted to do some variations on it, I can select a motif or a texture from my pattern library, possibly anything in there. Let's say I want to fill in one of these stripes, maybe this black one, this big black stripe here. Whoops. I want to select that with my magic wand tool and making sure that I have contiguous on, otherwise it's going to select the black in the entire design. So I want to make sure that contiguous is selected just to pick up that single stripe, and I do not want any anti-aliasing. Anti-aliasing is not a good thing for clean black and white design. So we want to fill this in now with patterns. I'm going to go under my Edit menu, Fill, and I have some patterns that I've already defined, so I'm just going to click on Pattern and look in my little pattern library here and choose one of the patterns or textures that I might have. So let's see that one here. Okay, so I have a beautiful pattern texture that I can put into the design, and if I wanted to again copy that, I can click on that, use my Alt key, and move it over so that I have my pattern now in repeat. Again, I want to save my file. I'm going to save this as something else so I'm not overwriting my original stripe design. I'm going to call that the pattern stripe design, or texture stripe design, whatever I wish to call it. Okay, and I'm saving this also as a PDF. This is also a way that you can create a border pattern just simply by creating a section and filling it in with a pattern. This would also be, if I wanted to create this as a back border, I'm going to go under my image menu here and I'm going to rotate my image. Let's rotate it, let's say 90 degrees clockwise, right? And let's say I want to use this as a border pattern. That I can use it horizontally or vertically, however I want. I can actually even use this section here, and maybe I want to fill that in with a different kind of a pattern. Or I can fill it in with just plain white. Let's fill it in with white, Edit, Fill, with my foreground color first. Okay. And if I wanted to fill that in with a pattern, Edit, Fill, and let's see what else we have in our pattern library here that might look good in here. Let's try one of these little motifs. Okay, so you can see that I have I've created kind of a border pattern, or I can create it's actually considered a stripe pattern also, border pattern with a field. If this was a much smaller pattern, I could consider that a field You can actually go under your scale here. If I wanted to scale this pattern, I can go in and let's say I want to scale it down really small. Say OK, and you can see that I have that. If I want to crop this, maybe I don't want these stripes on the bottom, I can crop it, and I have my border pattern with a field. So there are all kind of different things that you can play around with, filling in stripes and so on. I can also, if I wanted to place certain motifs in here, I can certainly do that by just placing a motif and flipping it and rotating it and so on along my border pattern to create a different variation even still. So there we have it. There we go. Save as, and now I'm going to save that as a border pattern. Okay, there we go. So very quickly I've made a few different variations on the patterns, and you can have fun with it, experiment with different motifs and different combinations of different motifs. I can go in and clean things up or extend things, and also add to it with my pencil tool. If I wanted to draw some things in there, I can certainly do that. Go back to my background layer. I can actually create new patterns and new texture. I can actually add some more interest to the stripe just by creating different things here and different textures and different variations. So you can use your pencil tool and have fun with it. There's like an eraser, and maybe I want to add some little dots in here. Make sure that we're on our pencil and not the pen. Whatever motifs you want to add in here. Okay, you get the idea. I'd like to play with this a little bit more, but you get the idea. And again, just keep saving over it, and you can see that you can create